Tice. I think I've had the pleasure of talking with and working with most of you who are on the call today, and in some cases with other representatives of the colleges who were the sort of program points or program leads on this work. We're just going to take a couple minutes to get everybody on the same page. As a part of the MCAM initiative, the Corporation for Skilled Workforce subcontracted with my company, which is called Key Links, and we, in partnership with Savecki and Associates, in the person of Effie Sieverts, we worked closely with the colleges to develop career pathway roadmap tools. Effie, in a minute, is going to walk us through the website quickly so everybody is sure they understand where those tools are located. But the main purpose of the workshop today is to focus on giving you the tools and skills to be able to make changes to the roadmaps yourselves. As those of you who have been involved know, this is an iterative process. These are living documents. Things change. Programs change. So it was always intended, and one nice thing about this tool is that it's easy to make changes as things occur. And we will, Key Links will have a one-year contract to support the database behind the tool, and Effie will be available to answer questions and provide technical assistance. But we wanted to do a kickoff today to get you started. And at the end of the webinar, I'll be asking you what you want to do next. If you might want to, as a group, have another webinar, or if you individually want to talk to her, we can work this out a couple of different ways. But it is a fairly user-friendly tool. So Effie, if you'll go to the next slide. I wanted to talk about what our training objectives were for today. And the main one is for you to learn how to access the actual web tool itself. And so think of it as like the Wizard of Oz. What you see on the website is the front-facing piece, but we're going to lift the curtain for you today and show you what's behind the curtain so you can see how it works and what you need to do to make changes. So that link is mcamctepathways.org. And at the end of this session, Effie will be giving all of you login credentials to be able to go in behind the curtain yourselves and make changes. We want to spend some time on a general orientation so you can learn how to access your individual roadmap drawings and give you the skills for updating those. So in a nutshell, that's what we'll be covering. And Effie, if you'll go to the next slide, just wanted to highlight some of the changes we're going to cover. These are the kinds of things that over the past 6 to 9 months as we've been developing the roadmaps with the colleges, these are the kinds of things that have shifted. We did initial drafts, and then we updated those, and we updated those. And we've worked with some colleges to even revise entire roadmaps to make them clearer. But these are the kinds of things we'll be talking about. Adding and removing resources, because at the top of each roadmap there are common boxes that identify resources and feeder systems. We'll be teaching you how to update the actual content, the online content behind the sample occupations, for example. If you learn that some of your students are getting a lot of jobs in a certain area and you want to add an occupation, how do you go about doing that? You may want to change some hyperlinks. Or in some cases, we've determined that the PDFs behind the documents may not be on your website, so we have a special sort of place where Effie has those stored so we can link to PDFs even if they're not on your website. Adding and removing boxes, changing the connections and the lines between the boxes. So that's kind of a snapshot. We have an hour and a half. And we want to make this very interactive and very user-friendly. So even we are recording the webinar, so people can watch it again if they need reminders about things. That's why we asked you all to mute and cut out the background noise. But there are a couple different ways that you can ask a question. You can put them in the chat room, and I'll be monitoring that. You can also just take yourself off mute and ask a question. We're a small enough group that I'm not concerned about that, as long as there's not too much background noise in the process. So before I turn it over to Effie to get us sort of oriented around the web page, et cetera, does anybody have any questions about what we want to accomplish? Does this agenda make sense?
Looks good to me.
Okay. Well, hearing no objections, then let's dive in. So, Effie, can you take us to the web page and sort of walk everybody through so we're sure we're on the same page about that, and then go behind the scenes?
Absolutely.
And Effie, maybe you could talk a little louder or turn your volume up. It's a little hard to hear you.
Yes, absolutely. So here we are on the mchem.org website, which is where all of the roadmaps that have been developed to date have been placed. And from the home page, if you navigate down to the footer of the website, we have the links to each of the individual colleges where those resources have been made available. So today, for our training purposes, we were going to take a look at the Macomb welding. So by clicking on Macomb in that footer area, we're loading up the Macomb Community College Advanced Manufacturing Roadmap, Career Pathways. And I'll click on the box for welding. And so
we decided to do welding because everybody has welding. We just thought that would be an easy one that everybody can relate to.
And when we refer to embedded roadmap, by being embedded, it's visually included in the design of the website. And the purpose of this web tool allows embedding of these roadmaps in multiple resources. This mchem.org site is just the chosen site at this point in time. But each of these developed roadmaps for Bay, Lansing, Macomb, Mott, Schoolcraft, they can be taken and embedded into the individual college websites, which has been something Audrey has brought up as a future possibility for this project. So in this display, we have access to downloadable PDF versions if you wanted to print out this roadmap and take it with you to a meeting or share it with a colleague. There's also text-only versions, which are an ADA compliant display of this same graphic visual in a non-graphic way that screen readers can process. But the core of the project here with these roadmaps is providing us the details about the welding program for each of these individual colleges. So here we're focusing on Macomb. As Audrey mentioned, we have the feeder systems, the high school students, adult learners, job seekers, and how those feed into starting with your admissions and advising, your student support resources, and then those lead down into your credit certificate short-term training. Each of these resources are active hyperlinks to information that your college has provided to us in the process of designing and setting up these programs on your behalf. The sample occupations are career opportunities that were best fitted for the types of certificates and degrees that your college was offering, and the appropriate certifications that people could obtain in the process of going through the short-term trainings or certificate programs. We also are leading down into four-year degree information, so we provide articulation and transfer resources, the transfer agreements, articulation agreements as applicable, and how those feed into job listings in Michigan with Pure Talent Connect or other appropriate career-linked resources through your college website. So each of these resources are college-specific at the organization level, but also statewide specific or nationally driven based on the resources that are being used. Any initial questions from this point of view before we lead into how we actually manage and maintain this content? And is everybody hearing me loud and clear?
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm good on my end, yeah.
Great. So have all of you had the opportunity to navigate this site or use these resources yet?
Yeah.
I have.
Yep.
Excellent. So as we showed in the presentation orientation, the link for managing these pieces is found at mchem.ctepathways.org. And as we finish our training today, you'll each be receiving a login credential for accessing this site. So you don't need to worry about looking for those resources yet. They haven't been sent out yet. But you will be given a direct link with your login email and a new temporary password. The first time you log in, you're going to generate your password through a change password link. That's an automatic link through the automated message that you will receive. At any time that you're in this project, whether it's after our training today or next week as you're getting started and you have questions or you don't remember certain steps, I just want to point out that we have online tutorials and resources that are available 24/7 for the project, but we also have this help desk link that's available whether you're logged in or not. And through this help desk link, these messages go directly to me. I am that live body on the other end of the line. So I will get back to you, answer your questions, set up individual webinar trainings for further orientation if you need it. So just know that there is a live body on the other end of that line. When you first log in, you're going to see some just general information about the project and again more resource links to those specific sites like the mchem.org or the training tutorials. But our main focus here is roadmap drawings. So the roadmaps are those flowcharts, those paths in your programs. So we're not going to refer to them as flowcharts. We'll refer to them as roadmaps. When you click on the roadmap drawing link on the sidebar navigation, your window display is going to refresh to show you a drawing list with these filter boxes across the top. These filter boxes allow you to navigate and view the roadmaps that have been developed at each one of these individual colleges, from Bay to Kellogg to Macomb. So this is not a proprietary system. Not any one college is in ownership of their design or their content. It's a very collaborative tool. So even though you might be a specific user at Bay College or at Schoolcraft, you're able to view and navigate the work at other colleges. You just can't edit it because you're not a user at that specific college, but you have full visibility of it. So for our purposes today, we're going to be focusing on Macomb College. As a user at Macomb, when you first log in, you're not going to see anything in this rendered drawing list below. It'll actually say the word none because as a new user in the system, your name hasn't been associated with any of the work. Because this is a collaborative tool, as you start editing the drawings, your name will show up in these last modified columns with the username associated with who made those last changes. And like you can see myself, I did the primary developments, but there was also Marcus Cortez who assisted with some of the work as well. So you can see who created or edited the work, and that's how this collaboration takes place as you have colleagues assisting you with management and development of these roadmaps. Now our focus really is simply on updating and maintaining the list of drawings that have already been created for you. So we're not going to be focusing on developing any new work, but you are going to get a sense for how all of that is accomplished through this system. Because as Audrey said, it is pretty intuitive and straightforward with how it functions in its design capabilities. So as users are added for your organization, this users column in the middle will update to show the list of users. And if you want to see work specific to a specific user, then you would click on their name under this list. Or if you're wanting to go to a specific program under the programs and occupations, for instance, welding, I can click on that and my roadmap list will update underneath to show me just that one drawing that I clicked on. At any time that you want to return to seeing only the work that you personally have been involved in editing, you can click on the My Drawings link at the top of the filter boxes, and that will reload your drawing list below with the work that you specifically were involved in. But in order to make sure that we're seeing visibility of all of the Macomb work, I want to make sure that I have Macomb and Show All selected in my two occupations, my organizations and my occupations filter boxes. So right now we have a total of 5 roadmaps. We have CNC machining, multi-skilled mechatronics, multi-skilled mechatronics short-term training information, which is a secondary roadmap, and productions in welding. So like I showed earlier, I'm just going to click on the occupations and program title from the filter box to show only welding in my list and make it a little bit easier for visibility. Is anybody having a hard time seeing this list? Should I increase the size for better visibility?
That would be helpful.
Okay, can do. How's that? So for general orientation here, to understand the structure for the drawing list, we have all of our drawings are sorted alphabetically. And so here, now that we're just looking at welding, we can see that we have this cogwheel. That I'll go into in a little bit more detail is the drawing properties, where we kind of get information for that drawing as a whole. But underneath welding, we have multiple versions, version 1, version 2, and version 3. Each one of these is a very independent view of what the status of that drawing was at the time it was developed. So I kind of liken this to what a Microsoft Word document might be like, where you don't really think of versioning something, versioning a document, but essentially that's what you're doing every time you open a document. You make a change, you fix a typo, you add a hyperlink. You're actually creating different versions of that document, and it's just time-stamped with Jason having updated that drawing at that time of the day. So the purpose for this roadmap web tool was designed to get out of the cycle of who owns what document, what server, what computer does it live on, when was the last time it was updated. It kind of takes away all of those questions, and it makes a collaborative place where you have full visibility, and as staffing changes happen, you don't have to wonder who owned that document last. You have full visibility of it, and you can collaborate with new staff members, easily training other staff members to take on managing and sustaining the development of these pieces of literature and information. So here we're on version 3, and it was last updated on April 5th of 2016, but it was originally developed back in November of 2015. So if I click on the view version, this little picture box here, that allows me to view the drawing in its original state. What did it look like in version number 1 when we first started this project? We had a lovely little placeholder. But if I go back to my drawing list and I look at version number 3, where we're at today, this is how far that drawing has come. And so they're just kind of little moments in time. So currently, version number 3 is our published version. And I have this version box on the left-hand side now that I'm actually viewing this roadmap, where I can see visibility of the title as I can across the top with the header bar. I'm in version number 3 and it's published, and there is a total of 3 versions. Just like on the roadmap drawing list, I also have that cogwheel and this little wrench. I'll go into those more in just a moment. We also have additional tools when we're viewing this, what I call drawing canvas. So this drawing canvas is actually where we will be developing, managing the work. Some of you may have heard of the term WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. What you're seeing here in the web tool is very much practically identical, if not absolutely identical, as to what your end viewer is seeing when they go over to that MCAM website. What you see is what you get. How you lay it out here is how it's going to look to the general public. We have tools available to us when we're viewing this drawing canvas that help us to do further things. We can copy it, we can print it, and we can unpublish it. So let me jump back to that drawing list for a moment. When we're looking at this list of these 3 different versions, we can see version 1 is listed here, but it's not highlighted like version number 3 is. There's kind of a little key icon code legend off to the side here that shows us what these icons stand for. So I have this little report icon next to version number 3, and it's also grayed out in a darker color. That identifies version number 3 as being the currently published version. So just like with any document that you deal with in life, there's only going to be one valid version of it at any one time. And that's what this is identifying for us in our drawing list, that version number 3 is that currently published version. If I click on this cogwheel next to the title, I'm going to see a lot of the same information that I'm seeing on the drawing list, but more specifics to this welding version, or welding history. From this cogwheel drawing properties page, this is where if I needed to make a change to the program name, I could do that here in this program name box, or I can change which industry cluster it falls under, but currently we're all in the manufacturing industry cluster. That embed code, when I have a published version, that embed code is found right here. So right now we have that being utilized in the design for the MCAM website. But as I see need to embed it in other places, like on the Macomb website, possibly in the future, this is where I would find that code to display the exact same drawing. I'm not going to display a different drawing than what's on MCAM. I'm going to display the exact same drawing. This external link is giving us information as to which web page is actually embedding that link. So we're getting trackback information. We're able to see how many views we have of this drawing happening out there in the World Wide Web. And then as we want to collaborate and share these with others, I have HTML links, I have PDF links. That PDF link is the same one that we saw here on the MCAM site, that PDF version. By the web developer using that link for that PDF version, that PDF link is always pulling whatever the currently published version is. So as we make updates, version number 3 becomes version number 4, eventually becomes version 10 or 12. These links, these resources, never have to be touched again by IT staff, by yourself or whoever is managing that website content. These embed codes, HTML links, PDF links from this drawing properties page will always reflect the currently published version without any other interaction from any IT web developer person. That's a huge plus for sustainability. And the accessible link is that ADA compliant text-only version. So here we also have visibility of the versions 1, 2, and 3, who developed them, when they were last modified. We see that version number 3 is highlighted here with that report icon. So once a drawing has been published, I showed you from the drawing canvas And anytime you see these little action buttons or little picture view icon, I can click that to go to that drawing canvas at any time. There's a little pop-up preview version here, so I can just kind of get a quick pop-up view of it to see if that's the version I want to be looking at. And here's one of those tool features to copy that version. That copy version is really the sustainability factor of this whole development. So when we'll get into that in a moment when we start working with actually playing around with the features and developing and editing the features. But if I just want to get back to viewing the drawing canvas, I can click on that view icon there. We also have this wrench icon next to version number 3. We saw it from the drawing properties page, and we also saw it on the drawing list. If I go back to the drawing list, that blue wrench next to the versions, that is different from the drawing properties where I'm looking at not information for the drawing as a whole, but information for the drawing on a specific version level. So if I click on that blue icon next to version number 3, I have a lot of the same action information. I have confirmation of the program name. This is version number 3. It is the currently published version. This is where I can manage notes about why I made changes to the drawing or what this version was created for, fixing broken hyperlinks or typos or adding certificates. It's really helpful to use notes. I'll go into that more as we continue forward with our update. But instead of having hyperlinks for the HTML link to view this roadmap or PDF in whatever the currently published version is on, this one is actually specific to version number 3 only and ever only version number 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I want to make sure that folks are tracking with Effie. Can we get just a couple comments or questions from anyone?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Please feel free to jump in as she's going. It's a lot to take in, but you'll see in just a minute as she gets to manipulating the drawing, like this is all kind of background. Thanks.
It feels a little bit like a deer in the headlights when you first get oriented to this because it's never something you've done before, and it's really once you get your hands involved and start mixing the pie, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with it. So bear with me, and like Audrey said, feel free to chime in with any questions. I really want you guys to walk away from this feeling confident and comfortable with what lies ahead for you to manage this work.
So I have a question.
Who's this?
The HTML link right there, the HTTP, is this where I would, if I wanted to give this to my web people to put on our website, the interactive one or the PDF one, this is the place I get it from, or the prior screen you were showing us?
So confirmation here at the top of the screen tells us that we're in the version settings. And so if you're wanting to put this on your website, do not use the version settings.
Okay.
This would be more for collaboration, like say for instance you're doing a draft of version number 4 and it's not the published version, so your published link wouldn't work. In this case, you would want to use this version number 4 HTML link to email it to a colleague or send it to somebody for feedback. So version HTML links and PDF links are more specific to short-term use. From the cogwheel, from the drawing properties screen, that's where you would want to provide those links and resources to your IT staff. And it'll look more comprehensive with the embed code and with how many views that embed code has had, but also where you see version number 3 is published here.
Okay, thank you.
The embed code is more specifically what you would give your IT or your webmaster for your college, or if you're working only from the HTML or the PDF side of things. When you see the word published here in the URL, right in the middle of that URL string, that's when you know you're using the links that will always point to whatever the currently published version is.
And, and for those of you who are interested in potentially having the capability of having these on your websites, Effie can go into that process with you, like on a one-on-one call or a one-on-one exchange in email, because we do think that that's an opportunity that hasn't been explored. But it may be a little more complicated than just everybody on the call is interested in knowing about. So maybe feel free as a resource to be in touch with her to explore that. I'm not your contact for that because I am not a tech person. You can see why I partner with Effie on this work. I'm a program person. But she is available to help those of you who have technical questions above and beyond this session.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's actually take a look at what it takes to edit the drawing. So whether you're in this screen or on your roadmap drawing list, we're going to find that drawing that we want to make a change to. So we're going to use welding as our example today from Macomb. When I click on the picture icon to view the drawing canvas, I can't do anything to edit the drawing because it's published. It's been locked, and I have confirmation of that over here in that sidebar tools area. It says this version is locked. Copy it to a new version to make changes. So I can unpublish this version, but by unpublishing it, I still can't edit it. It's kind of frozen and locked in place, timestamped. So in order to copy it to a new version, I'm going to use this feature here in the tools where as you go around the web tool and you see that little double paper copy feature, that's the feature that you will use at any screen to copy a specific version into a new version. But it's not just the ability to copy it from one version to another. When I click that link, it's going to default to your organization when you're logged in. My particular user rights, which you'll see a few different changes between my user rights and yours because I have the ability to design roadmaps at any one of your community colleges. But when you have your own user account, you're going to see visibility of only your school's work to be able to edit. So I'm going to start by making sure I have Macomb selected. And then what it gives me the option for, though, is to create a new version or a new drawing. So let me just spend a moment to differentiate what those are. If I'm working in welding and I want to make an update to welding, then I want to make sure that I'm creating a new version of welding. But if I'm working on developing a new roadmap for, let's say, something outside of manufacturing, like early childhood education, I would use welding as a template by creating a new drawing, and I would call it early childhood education. By using this copy this version feature in a new drawing status, I can actually take all of the content layouts, the color schemes, the connections, the use of the logo graphics, hyperlinks, formatting, italicized bolding, everything identical as a template for developing a new program. And that's a great benefit for us as we consider the possibilities of this project. But for today's purposes, we are wanting to focus on the new drawing, the new version aspect, where we have an existing drawing and all we want to do is update it. So in this case, I'm going to create a demo of this welding because I don't want to make any changes to the welding that we have in place. So I'm going to call this one our welding training demo. That version note is for webinar training purposes only. Okay, so I just created a new drawing because I wanted to be able to not affect the work that has been developed for Macomb. But I'm still here in Macomb. I'm just in the drawing that I've titled Welding Training Demo. You see that confirmed across the top. Our screen reloaded with that new version. I'm in version number 1, and it's a draft. I see draft stamped all across the back compared to what we saw earlier where it was pretty much a white grid screen. So now I know I'm working in an active drawing. My tools have also updated to show me the design color palette available to Macomb for development work. But because I'm using this as a template to show you how the features work, what I have here is an exact duplicate of our welding program. Everything is identical. All the hyperlinks are the same, content formatting and everything. So here we are working in welding in a draft. I can also confirm that I can edit the content because as I start to move around my screen, I can not only just click on boxes, but I can move them up and down, side by side. I can see I have toggles here. The purpose, however, for our training is we don't want to have to focus too much on shifting the design, shifting the layout, shifting that design standard. Because between welding, CNC machining, the multi-skilled mechatronics, and production, all 4 of those programs, or depending on your college, 3 or 2, all of the programs that have been designed for your college are using the exact same design layout for the content. So if we focus today on shifting the boxes around a lot, that will affect our overall design scheme. What we're worried about mostly is how do we manage the content that it contains. That will involve maybe adding some boxes, moving some content around as we get going here. But primarily I want to focus on how the tools work. So as you can see, when I click on a box, I have some toggles here on the left and on the right of that box. What that shows me is that I can adjust the width of a box in order to fit the content or adjust my design accordingly. But the height of the box is completely dependent on the content found within it. So Job Seekers is kind of one of those boxes where we're going to see more content changes happen than maybe with adult learners or student support services. So if I right-click on a box, I have a full menu available to me in how to edit and manage the content for this box. So I can edit my title, which is just an inline title editor. I can right-click, edit the content. What that does is brings up a pop-up box, which again is that WYSIWYG experience, kind of like a Microsoft Word. What you see is what you get. You have some basic tools for bold, italicized, underlined, font justifications, font size controls, bullet lists, numbered lists, indentations. And maybe somebody could chime in and volunteer a suggestion for what might be a job seeker's update that we would make for a resource link. Does anyone have a suggestion that would work for us in this example?
What about like Michigan Talent Connect? I don't know if that'd be Michigan Works or not.
Sure. Doesn't hurt to add any of those examples. Michigan Talent Connect. So what happened, because I entered down from this bullet list that already had a link, is it automatically created a new link for us. But what I'm going to do is highlight my string of text, and I'm going to use this hyperlink insert edit link feature here at the top, and it looks like a chain. There's a chain and then there's an unchain. So in order to insert or edit that link, I'm going to click on that, which brings up a new pop-up box, and I provide the URL for that resource. So if we just go over to our Google here and say Michigan Talent Connect, I totally did not type Michigan right. don't judge me. So we have mitalent.org. Okay. I think this will be a good resource. So if there was a specific resource here that you would want to provide, or if you just want to bring people to the direct homepage link, it's kind of your call as to what is the resource that you're trying to provide to that student viewer on the other end. So in this case, maybe we would do it as a veteran home, Veterans Employment Services, Michigan Talent Connect. Let's consider that. I know we already probably have a veterans link up there, but Veterans Employment Services. So here, we could actually extend this to say Veterans Employment Services, and then click on that link icon and simply paste the URL. Now you have one other feature here that's called Target that allows us to identify if we want this link to open in the same window or open the link in a new window. I always recommend that as you're designing your hyperlinks to function in your roadmap, that you set it to open link in new window. If you use the same window, it will take somebody away from your roadmap to that resource, and they would have to try to navigate back to your roadmap. But by using new window, it keeps your roadmap in place and opens up your resource in a separate tab or a separate window where they don't lose sight of your roadmap or that resource. So always, as possible, use the target open link in a new window and click Insert. Once that link is in place, you'll see that the link feature up above is highlighted because it's active. The paper link, the break unlink feature is also active because it's showing you that you can use that feature if you need to. So by adding that resource link and clicking OK, now our content has been updated with that additional resource link.
So everyone, you can see that through these, simple examples that a part of the learning process for you is going to be playing with this a little bit yourselves. Once you get the login information after we're done, to go in and try a couple things, and again, use Effie as a resource if you get stuck. But we're going to, because we are not in a lab, the ideal situation would be Effie would be there, you all would be in a lab together in a classroom, and you would all be doing this with her. We all know, that would be ideal. But since it's not, this is kind of a virtual, and you're having to take in a lot of information. But it's going to be important before too much time elapses for you to go in and play with it a little bit.
So that's just a general hyperlink experience. But more common than not is you're going to have changes actually to your credit certificates, whether it's adding or removing a certificate or an associate of applied science degree offering, changes to your certifications or your short-term training options. So in the case of some of the work that we've done earlier this spring in getting these in place, adding sample occupations and all that, I want to show what it would take to actually add additional content, additional boxes. So in the case of certifications, not all certifications are necessarily the same. We don't necessarily want to add a different certification to the same certification box because it might have a different path. So if I want to utilize, kind of like I did with the copying the version and creating the template of the work, within the roadmap itself and our right-click menu, we have multiple features, one of which includes the ability to duplicate a box with all of its formatting, so the color, the linking style, and everything. If I find any one of these boxes that I want to duplicate, I can simply just right-click on that box and say duplicate. and it creates a free standing of that resource. Now all I have to do is edit the content for it. So frequently we had other types of certifications for welding. I don't have one off the top of my head, but maybe if I took a look.
We had OSHA in our welding program, if that helps.
Yeah, that does. Thank you. So, edit. Change this to the OSHA 30, I believe it was. And then we would just provide a new insert link, and instead of using the AWS certification, we would provide that resource for the OSHA certification. I'm not going to take the time to navigate over there to find it at the moment, but you get the general idea about how that link feature is going to work. So once I have that new resource, I just change the content, insert that link with the new link, update, and then that resource becomes available. But in some cases, I need to kind of fit that certification box in a different space. So I can kind of drag and shift things around a little bit and try to get them to align in different ways. So for instance, if my short-term training could go from, I want to add a connection here. So short-term training could lead to a certification, but also my advanced welding certificate could lead to that certification as well. So I'm going to take this central credit certificate and I'm going to right-click it and look at what my menu options are here. So I have my title color, border color, background color, and I'm going to start a connection here. Okay, so by clicking Start Connection here, nothing visually happens on the screen whatsoever until I choose where I want to end that connection. So I know I want Advanced Welding Certificate to end at the OSHA 30. So when I right-click on the OSHA 30 certification box, my right-click menu doesn't say Start Connection here, it says End Connection here. Once I end that connection, well, I'm kind of confused as to where my arrow went because it's thinking that that certification box is beneath the Advanced Welding Certificate. You can kind of see them overlapping here. So it's a smart program, and it will actually be pretty handy if I can just get that connection that I see moving around here going in the right direction. All of these connections themselves have their own independent right-click menu controls. So when I see this arrow here, I can drag it along the plane, each of the edge planes of this connection box, and I can right-click on that connection to change its start point to the right side of the box, and I can change its end point to the top. That's good. I want that there, but I'm going to change its orientation from vertical to horizontal. So now I see the connection going between those two boxes, but it's still not visually connected because that box is lower. So now I'm going to right-click it and change the segment to a 2-line segment. And then I just have to change my visual orientation of that arrow. Or I can change my endpoint to the left side of the box and my segment to a 3-line segment, and I can have the box actually stacked visually that way. So as these start to work with how your connections overlap and function, you can have a lot more flexibility in your designs and the shifts that are going to naturally occur as you make changes to your content. Any questions about the boxes or the connections?
Why does the one box still have the 2 arrows beneath it, the credit certificate and then the Associate of Applied Science? There's those 2 arrows on that line?
Are you seeing
Yes,
the two
that's
arrows
there.
directly beneath it here?
Yes.
Do you not see the
Oh,
the
yeah.
three-line segment coming off to the side?
Yeah.
Was there a delay in your feed possibly?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Clicked on it way.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that there was a visual delay there, but were you able to follow along with what I was saying, that here you have a right-click menu for how to control the segments
Yep.
and the starting and ending
Yep.
ports for those connections? So there's also a feature here that allows you to auto-position a connection. So if I had a box coming directly out to the side or from the top of a box, if I right-clicked and I said auto-position, it would detect that that box is now to the side. Or if I put the box underneath and I said auto-position, it automatically snaps that connection in orientation to the location of that box. And all of these elements align themselves with the use of this grid. So sometimes as we maneuver and adjust things around, you can see here on the AWS certification that those connections don't really align like they had before. So I just have to kind of nudge and finesse the layout in order to get connections to overlap the way that I desire them to overlap. And if you have multiple connections, so I'll go back to showing this particular connection in its three-line segment form. Change my start point to the right. So I can adjust these to snap anywhere on those grids that I like, but if I also wanted to have a connection coming from my short-term training down into the OSHA, I could start a connection at short-term, right-click on the OSHA certification box, and now I have a longer arrow connection coming down from the short-term, and I just have to slide that one over, change the endpoint to the left of the box with a two-line segment, and then I can actually overlap those connections to make them look more synchronized. And then if this OSHA certification box can lead to a sample occupation like our AWS box does, then I could also start a connection from OSHA going over to our sample occupation. And that one wanted to go out of the top of the box, so I simply need to change my start point to the right, orientation to horizontal, end point to the left with a three-line segment, and just finesse those ending arrows on top of each other to get it to visually snap in place and overlap in a nice clean layout. And as you can see, if I have to adjust a box in order to gain access to a connection, it's a simple matter of sliding that box over and sliding it back in order to keep the layout clean. What's going to affect your end viewers the most is if you go in here and start editing your boxes, but you don't pay attention to how the boxes lay out with each other. If you utilize the grid to try to maintain boxes maintaining the same width and keeping them stacked over themselves visually, your presentation and the professional appearance of your roadmaps will greatly improve just by making a simple effort to keep components in line with each other. Any questions at this point in time?
I was just going to make a comment, and for those of you who've done any sort of like design work, even in Word, where you use the SmartArt or use anything like that. I mean, this is not that much different. It is a little more complicated, but I'm hoping you're finding the presentation understandable and fairly straightforward. Like I said before, I think it's just a matter of getting in and sort of playing with it a little bit. And Effie, I'm conscious of our time. We have about 30 minutes left.
Yes. So what I'd like to
Great.
focus on is this other aspect of the sample occupations, because that's a key component to the end goal for why people would come through your program. My strongest recommendation is to utilize the resources that are in front of you right here. So instead of trying to go out and search and figure out where that resource is that you're wanting to use, start with what you have available to you. So in the case of the Advanced Welding Certificate, we'll use that as our example. We only have 2 sample occupations right now that both are available from the Basic Welding Certificate and the Advanced Welding Certificate. Or even the AAS degree. It only has a single occupation listed right now. You'd think that, well, maybe there's additional occupations that would be fitting. So let's actually take our AAS here. We have pipe fitter with a wage range of $14.27 to $38.61. I'm going to click on that resource link to open that in its own tab. So this is taking us to ONET and pipe fitters and steam fitters. It says that some sample reported job titles include journeyman pipe fitter, machine repairman, sprinkler steam fitter. Does anyone here have knowledge of what other types of occupations would be fitting for a manufacturing technology AAS degree holder? Is anybody in a student support or counseling aspect where they are dealing with the types of occupations they're trying to help students get into?
Well, let's just use like manufacturing technician.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at that. Manufacturing technician. So I'm just going to type that in that quick search link box, and it comes up with a bright outlook for the manufacturing production technician. And that one provides us with information for a fairly suited job. So all we have to do in order to add manufacturing production technicians to this sample occupation is copy that URL, go back to our roadmap, right-click the box, and edit the content. And here I'm going to actually copy that content for pipe fitter because I want to use the same formatting. So I'm actually just using my keyboard controls to use my shortcut keyboard to copy and paste. And then I'm going to go back and grab that URL for manufacturing production technician. So for pipe fitter, I'm going to change that to manufacturing production technician. And fix my obvious typos there. Manufacturing production technician. I'm going to click on that link, change my ONET, and paste that new URL and click update. Now the wage range information was available here by the wages and employment link. So there was state wages that I want to click for local salary info. Click my state of Michigan. Go. And this will generate a list that I want to convert to an hourly wage range, excuse me. So I'm going to view the hourly wages, and that will update to show me that low to high range. So $15.54 to $44.41. $15.54 to $44.41. We'll go with that. Say OK. And now all I need to do is just adjust that sample occupation box up a little bit to fix my layout. And now I've added the sample occupation. And that's pretty straightforward. I believe all of our resources for the sample occupations are using those ONET resources. And as you can see, when we did that job search, it came up with many suggested similar occupations. So it may not always be the top selection that has the best fitting occupation that fits your needs for what you're producing in your roadmap content, but just a simple review of the resources within those occupations will help find the appropriate job. So the salary wage range is all provided through that salary info link there. With these formatting controls, as you can see, we have a lot of formatting in place for how those hyperlinks are working, the italicized and everything. The effort of just maintaining that content formatting is a simple control of just copy and paste, really. For those that are HTML savvy, there is an HTML edit source link here available where those that like to dabble with HTML can do so. This is the world that I live in most of the time, but if at any point in time you're going through and making updates or edits to your roadmap that you find that there is just something undesirable about the overall outcome of what you did, please feel free to reach out to me because I can fix any kind of HTML anomalies that may occur in that editing function. With managing content for your sites, I want to point out that because this is a text-driven information piece, as you make changes to your resources, sometimes you may want to provide resources that are varied, like we mentioned earlier about PDF. So if you're providing a URL to a PDF that lives on your server, I recommend always indicating that it is a PDF, just so that people can choose whether or not they want to download that resource. But if you're also wanting to paste information, say, out of a Word document into this, I highly advise that you process it through some kind of a general text editor so that way it doesn't come in with any hidden formatting, because hidden formatting can break the overall display of your roadmap, which we definitely don't want to happen. In the short scheme of things, most of what you're managing is simple word changes or additions or changes to the listings for certificates and other things. So we're not expecting to see a lot of major content other than just simple references to credit certificates and other types of documents like the short-term training areas. But the overall content should be pretty straightforward to manage. And if you're utilizing the structure of the existing design resources, doing simple adjustments like adding in an option for a new AAS degree can be as simple as duplicating a box and maneuvering, finessing things around in order to make adjustments for the inclusion of new offerings that we hope your college is moving forward with doing. Starting, ending connections, and things along those lines. Does anyone have any specific things that they would like me to highlight or focus on during a couple open minutes here for some general QA about how this functions?
It looks pretty straightforward. I think it's like Audrey said, we're just going to have to get it and play around with it a little bit.
Exactly. I have a help feature in place here that is a pop-up help box. So for instance, if you're making edits and you are struggling with line spacing, there's a line spacing help tool here that can help you understands that to do single spaces, you hold down your Shift and Enter key. Just kind of little quick tricks. But our full online tutorial is available in the resources section in our tutorial down below. Once you've made all of the changes that you want to see for your new version of welding or any of the programs that you're working on, maintaining, once you're done with shifting the content, adding your links, updating your sample occupations, the last step is simply publishing it. Because you have the benefit of these pieces already being linked into public resources with the MCAM site, as soon as you click Publish this version in your Tools menu off to the side, it's going to ask you yes or no. Any pages that are embedding this drawing will automatically be updated to this version. So all you have to do is say yes, and that version will be instantaneously updated through this website. And when I say instantaneously, I mean literally the split second you click publish. If Audrey was to come to the site and say, I wonder if Macomb updated their welding, and she can take a look 2 seconds after you click publish, she's going to see your changes instantaneously. The links up here for the PDF version and the text-only versions that are those published links will automatically show that current version that you just published, whether it's version 4 or version 54. The resources that these drawings take up on the database are so small and so minuscule that they're not, you know, if you publish version number 4, and look, you forgot to fix a broken hyperlink, or there's a typo that you overlooked, don't sweat it. All you have to do is view that version, copy that version, say why you did it. I fixed typo. Whatever the purpose, you create that new version. You're instantly working in version 4. Fix that problem that you noticed, and then publish that new version, and it's as good as gold. Because you're working with pieces that are already in place and you're just on a maintenance level at this point in time, the tasks and the workload are going to be so minuscule and so hopefully easy for you guys to incorporate into the work that you're already doing.
Effie, I just wanted to make one comment. A couple of the colleges have expressed some interest in, you know, their deans or other people in the college who've seen the roadmaps are interested in, you know, how do you build it out. And I know if you've finished the training and we have 5 more minutes, I think it would be instructive if we sort of showed them the Oregon site. But where I'm going with this is the purpose of today was to teach you how to, or orient you on how to make changes to the visuals that we've already developed. And as Effie just said, those are pretty minor, but we want to keep those current. But let's say, and I suspect there are some of you who have manufacturing programs that weren't a part of MCAM, and you want to build out your whole manufacturing. When she showed you at the beginning how you can copy a whole diagram and start afresh to build, you know, a new roadmap for a different program. Maybe it's logistics. So there are tools that are available through this software that, and she showed those earlier, like different colors and everything. We intentionally kept the look consistent across all the MCAM programs. But one of the things you all may want to talk about as you're talking about sustainability of the effort and what might happen to this after the next year, that's sort of where we are, like with Florida. We've done this with Florida. We did it with the National Aviation Consortium, which was 5 states across the country. Of course, it's here in place in Oregon. I mean, there are a number of other examples where where colleges have either individually or collectively decided that this system has utility, and they've found resources to sustain it. And we're certainly open to that opportunity. Our contract for the next year is simply to provide the maintenance of the database and some technical assistance. So we can do another webinar like in a month, or the middle of September, or sometime after, that's good, after everybody's had kind of a chance and summer's over, to play with it. It could be just an optional, for folks who want to and have questions, if you think that might be helpful. But where I'm headed is, if your college did want to build this out, you kind of have two options. Now that you or someone else on your team who you may train could literally develop roadmaps like this for all the rest of your manufacturing, or for your health, or for your business and finance. And that's what Oregon decided to do. So Oregon's link takes you to any college in the state and shows the entirety of the roadmaps that are available. So Effie's pulling that up now. So if you just click on a particular college and you look at their roadmaps, you can see, as she scans down, they have them in the arts, in business, in computer information technology, in health professions. This has taken years to build out, but that's been Oregon's commitment, and they do have state resources that support a career pathway coordinator part-time at every college that helps to do this work and other work related to Perkins. I also think it might be helpful, just again to get the sort of creative juices flowing, Effie, if you could show the high school connection, which is something we didn't do here. But we do have, for each of those schools, there's also the high schools went together, and so you see the high schools and the community colleges, and maybe you can show a high school. There you go. There's a whole part of this software that does programs of study. So this one she opened is in accounting at Lane Community College, and at the top it shows for Cottage Grove. So those are all the high schools that feed into that college. This is the program of study for those high schools. And then it shows the community college particular programs and what's required. So it's just an outstanding counseling tool for the high school folks to use, and students can access this, and they've found it really helpful. And again, I mean, this wasn't something that got developed overnight, but this is the work that we do as part of some of the work we do. KeyLinks does other work as well, but I subcontract with Effie to support this aspect of this work. So, as your colleges are thinking about this, just know that, I'm available to chat if you want to do that. This isn't a commercial. It doesn't matter. It's just if you think there might be some value, we're certainly willing to do that or interested in doing that. But if you individually want to build out more of these, you certainly can do that as well. And I would urge everybody to think about moving them to their college websites to give it some, college-specific identity. In addition to the MCAM, this isn't in place of it. It can be in several places. So I don't know if anybody has any reaction to that or whatever, but I thought that might be a good way to sort of close this down before we adjourn. Any questions about anything, either any of the training? What would be the next logical steps for you? You're going to play with it. Then do you just want to all be in touch with Effie individually? Do you want to talk among yourselves and decide with maybe Beth's guidance, or Beth or Susan convening a conference call or something in a month among you, like whether you want another webinar? We're very flexible, and we do, like I said, have a contract to support the effort for the next year in terms of some minor technical assistance. But just be curious about some feedback.
This is Beth. I actually have a question. I don't know if Effie can go back to Macomb's career pathway on the actual MCAM website. And then if you go down to the bottom and click on the multi-skilled pathway section, maybe you have to go back a page.
Yeah,
on the website. Yep, so multi-skilled. And I know that when you click PDF version, it's going to show you this. But if you go on the right side, the orange box that says more information, when you click that one and then you click PDF, it only shows you the first page. Is there a way that on this page, when we click PDF, that it will show this information?
Thank you for pointing that out. That was a matter of this being a secondary page, and I will have to include a PDF link probably within the content of the roadmap to download that.
Okay.
That is part of the embedded design for the roadmap. So thank you for pointing that out.
No problem. Thank you.
And just so everybody understands, and if you could go back one page, because Macomb had so many short-term non-credit training programs, it made this roadmap so busy that I call this the peeling the onion. It's the layering. So instead of trying to build it all on here, we built this extra more information. So when you click here, it goes to another page below or behind this that gives more detail on those short term. Some of you did that with your high schools too. If you have a lot of high schools that feed in, and in some cases when you click on the high school piece, it actually gives a big list of all of the high schools that feed in. And I think Effie's trying to find an example of that to show you.
Yeah, it was Kellogg and Schoolcraft. So in the list of drawings, they actually have secondary roadmaps, not secondary in the sense of being a different level in the system. They're just identified as multi-skilled mechatronics high school students. So for managing this resource link, it would be its own standalone roadmap.
Right, to see all those high schools, and then when you click on those, it takes you to the designated page for each of those resources or high school connections. So consider that too in building these out more fully. You can do all sorts of levels of information. A lot of you, when the drawings were being created, wanted to put a whole lot of information about like the AAS degree or the certificate program in the roadmap itself. And you can just see visually, it's not designed to do that. It's not designed to say too much more. I think we put numbers of credits in most of them, but it doesn't deal with content at all. But when you click on it, it should take you to something that can get you more content. And that's just, keep that in mind in terms of the design. We tried to keep these simple. You guys were great to work with to get to this level. There was a lot of back and forth, but hopefully you're pleased with the product. And I think this is just an introduction to show you that, A, you can begin to manage changes yourself. B, it's not so complicated. And C, there's a lot more that can be done with the tool that we haven't done yet, and that you can do on your own or in collaboration with us.
So Audrey, this is Tom. If we did find a need, those of us that don't have those secondary pages, and you don't need to walk through this because we can play with it, but would that still be a new version, and there would just be a way to add a page kind of underneath the home page, or would that be something different?
I'll let Effie respond. Yeah.
Okay.
Those would be independent roadmaps.
Okay.
So here, in the case of the Kellogg multi-skilled mechatronics, we have that as its own independent drawing in the list. And then a second independent drawing is the multi-skilled mechatronics high school student. So they are their
Okay, so
own.
that would actually be a new drawing in that box then.
Correct.
That you'd click.
It would be a new
Okay.
drawing. Uh-huh.
Yep, great, thank you.
If you like the example of any of the other pages or roadmaps that have been designed for these types of uses, like with Macomb with that secondary map for the multi-skilled mechatronics where we had additional short-term, you can find that in the web tool, or you can find these high school lists in the web tool simply by just navigating any of these other schools. And when you see a drawing you like the Kellogg High School students, and it's not a drawing that you own at your college, but it's owned by a different college, when you're viewing it, you can copy this version to your organization. And so it will automatically take it as a new drawing with all of its formatting and layout, and all you have to do is edit the content. And that's another beauty of the collaboration of this tool, is that it's not proprietary or owned by any one school. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can take that as a template for designing any work that you would like to do with that same format. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think we are close to wrapping up. I would encourage all of you to look at, those of you who have production, to look at the various production roadmaps that got developed, because there were definitely variations on the theme in terms of the production roadmaps, and you know, it makes a difference in terms of the visual. And Tom, I think you worked with me, if I remember correctly, to sort of simplify your production roadmap, correct?
Right, we did.
Yeah, and the rest of you may want to check that out. We eliminated a lot of the sidebar occupations and just created sort of one big reference for the fact that production, depending on what you offer or don't offer vis-a-vis production, if it's basically just like an MSSC intro, that was more like a feeder into the other programs. We came up with a slightly different visual, and you may want to check that out. But, you know, to date, unless you've been on the website and looked at everybody else's, we pretty much just kept each college working by themselves. And now that here's the opportunity for you to begin to, you know, collaborate and share and take ideas from other people's sites and incorporate those. We have just about a minute left, so I think we're going to wrap up. I would ask, I guess, Beth, maybe you to just, you know, query the folks and see if folks want to do another session sometime down the road. We'll be happy to do that, and Effie is available, you know, on a limited basis. I mean, we do have a budget for the next year to maintain the database and do some TA, so she's just going to keep track of her hours and keep me informed. But we do want to support you in making these changes, and I hope you found today useful. With that, I think, unless there's any other comments, I think we're adjourned. Effie, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks to all of you.
I will be posting this recorded session on the dashboard here for the web tool. So if you need to refer back to it at any time, that will be available at the beginning of next week for your review.
And you're going to send everybody what via an email?
They will all receive automated messages from our help desk, from the ctepathways.org help desk, with their automated temporary passwords and access to their login account.
Great. Well, thanks again, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.